LawCall, sponsored by the law firm of Reynolds, Horn, and Servant. And now, in the public interest, your rights, your calls live. LawCall.
Well, hello and welcome to LawCall. I'm Morgan Dukes, and tonight we're talking about workers' compensation claims and the role that mediators sometimes play in helping you to resolve your claims. Now, whether you are in the midst of a situation or if you have questions, maybe you were hurt at work and you just don't know what to do, then tonight is the night you should give us a call. 478-742-1351. So let me say hello and welcome back to the show, Mr. Joe Boyd from Reynolds, Horn, and Servant.
Good to be here. It's good to be here.
Always good to see you, Joe.
Well, you know, earlier in the night might have been better, but hey.
I love it. Yeah. But you know, when we come together, we always talk about workers' comp, which is very painful for anybody who's in that situation. It's so uncomfortable. There's so much involved with it. But tonight we're going to add a different twist on it.
Well, yeah, we're talking about how things get started, or what happens in the beginning of claims, or what doctors can be seen, or how much money can be paid through the system. And we're going to talk about some of those things as well tonight. But tonight we're going to talk about how claims end. What happens at the end? When should claims resolve? How should claims resolve? And we're going to talk about one specific process, which happens a lot in workers' comp, is mediation. And tonight to talk about that, we're going to have an expert here, Jane Civic. Who's a mediator here in Georgia. She's been doing this for over 20 years. Wow. And been mediating workers' compensation cases here, worked for the state bar, and I've had the privilege of having her into my office to mediate claims for me. And she does a wonderful job. So, Jane, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you both for having me. It is a pleasure to be here tonight.
Well, let's just start with the obvious question. Sure. Somebody who might be watching tonight might wonder, what exactly is mediation?
Well, mediation is a way for the parties of a case to take control over their legal problems. And it's where both sides, the employee, the injured worker, and the employer-insurer, all meet together with a neutral person and work out their differences. And as a mediator, I don't make any of the decisions for the parties, but I do help them come up with some kind of settlement that is in the best interest of everyone.
Okay, and that's important because, you want to resolve your case at some point. You don't want it to linger.
We do, and I think that's a good question. When do you find that cases are, when's it right to look at mediation?
Well, each case is different, of course, but I think when a person who's been injured at work is now medically stable and is ready to move on and just wants to get rid of the lawyers and put all of that behind them and maybe get back to work doing something else. It's a great time to settle.
Right, and I find in many of my cases, from the beginning, the insurance companies and/or the employers oftentimes are very eager to try to settle, but that's not always the right time for the claimant.
Well, it isn't. If there are a lot of unknown medical issues, the worker's not going to want to settle then, or shouldn't really, until they really get a firm handle on what's going on.
Yeah.
I think that's always a question. When you're going to settle the case, how are you going to? The best thing that can happen in a workers' compensation claim is for people to get better, and go back to work for the employer that they were working for. Unfortunately, sometimes, and this is not, it's not always because the employers are bad guys or doing something they shouldn't, and it's not always because the employees are trying not to get don't want to go back to a job they got hurt at. Oftentimes people just have permanent restrictions or injuries that prevent them from doing the job they used to have, and the employer, unfortunately, that's what they do. And so under the rare instance where the employer can kind of create a job to kind of fit their restrictions or disabilities, then resolving a claim through mediation oftentimes is the best way to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. 478-742-1351 is our number. Tonight we're talking about being injured on the job, workers' compensation, and mediation, the role that it plays in it, how it can help you out in your case or your circumstance or whatever you may be dealing with. If you have questions, give us a call. Again, the number is 478-742-1351. Now, once you open a workers' comp case, how long can it go on?
Years. In fact, there's no, settlement is not a forced issue. Nobody can make either side settle a workers' compensation claim. Whether it's the employer or insurer that's paying for the claim, or the employee who is working or who is injured and can't work. Typically, for my clients, I'm going to say we're going to need to focus on getting you better. And once you're better, then we can look at resolving a claim.
Okay.
I think that doing it prior to now sometimes there are issues in a claim that can force you to kind of maybe look at settling it before you might want to, but that's the optimum situation, at least in my opinion. And then, because the question is how are you going to treat when this case settles? I mean, assuming that there may be ongoing treatment that's needed, how do you treat once the case resolves, and how are you going to get paid? I mean, because when you settle a case, it ends all obligations from the insurance company. Yes, they may pay a lump sum of money to the claimant, and that may be nice for certain things, but when that money runs out,
then it's out.
Yeah, right.
So when it's over, it's over. 478-742-1351 is our number. Tonight, I want to say hello to Inez from Fort Valley. Welcome to Law Call. Hello, Inez.
Hello.
Hey there. What is your question for us?
I would like to know how I can add my neck and my shoulder to my claim.
Ooh, now that's an interesting question. How do you add something to a claim?
Well, in the end, it's about the treating doctors. I mean, looking back at what the complaints are from the beginning, and I don't know how much time, Inez, we're talking about here between the initial injury and at this point in time when you're trying to add the body parts. But oftentimes people get injured, and they may injure lots of things in an accident. But one thing's hurting the most, and so they go and they make complaints about that one thing. They get treatment, and oftentimes they're given pain medications, which doesn't just help the one thing, it helps everything that's hurting. And then they get treatment for that one area, and it gets better. And then what happens when that area gets better? They're weaned off those pain medications, and all of a sudden something else starts to hurt. And and that's the problem, if you haven't reported or haven't been complaining. But going back to the whoever the authorized treating physician is in the claim, making those complaints about whatever the issue is, and hopefully it's something you've been complaining about or mentioned before, or that there's not a lot of time that's passed, and that doctor will be able to relate it back to the accident and injury, and that's the process going back through the treating doctor.
Okay. Well, I hope Inez feels better.
Well, I do too.
Yes,
I do too.
feel better.
And Jane, I guess when it comes to mediations, how do medicals play a role oftentimes, or at least, or maybe a medical where, the claimant thinks it's related, but the insurance company is debating it? How does that affect mediation?
That happens frequently. Right. And in a mediation, what you do is try to ferret out what parts were included, where the issues are, what parts may not be included. But really, it's a good opportunity for people both just to take a step back and see the bigger picture. And maybe it's better for a person to get out of the comp system, get a lump sum, and treat with whoever they think is appropriate instead of having the employer in charge of it.
Well, I think it's a lot about managing risk, and that's something that,
yeah, that's it. And from the employer side, they of course want to manage their risk. They want to make sure they're only paying for the parts of the body that have been injured at work. But for the worker, I think there's a lot of solace in knowing that when they settle their case, they can pick their doctor, and they can believe him or whoever the doctor is looking out for his or her best interests.
Right.
Yeah, that's always comforting.
Yes.
Always comforting. So all the best to you, Inez. Let's say hello to LaToya in Macon. Hello, welcome to Law Call. What is your question for us? LaToya? Well, maybe LaToya is not there right now, but you know what? Picking your own doctor is so comforting to a person who's been injured.
And it is, and I think it's something people don't anticipate. They think they've gotten hurt, why can't they go to their own doctor?
Right.
But as Joe, as you know, there are really a lot of restrictions on the medical treatment and who's in control of it when you're hurt at work.
Right. And that's one of the trade-offs. I mean, typically if you get injured at work, there's going to be a list of doctors, and you have to choose from that list. Oftentimes there's going to be a certain number of orthopedic specialists. There's going to be a certain number of doctors that and maybe just one doctor that could treat the condition that you got hurt at work for. Sometimes none of the doctors on the list are competent to treat the condition, but you go see one of them and they'll refer you to the right doctor. But you are kind of restricted, and these are all doctors that have been typically approved by the employer and or the insurance company that the employer has as approved doctors. So, oftentimes people feel, they're worried that the doctors are looking out for the insurance company more than they're working out for them.
Yeah.
Now, I'll say most of the time I think doctors are trying to do the right thing. But, sometimes, that might be a worry that's got some, teeth behind it. But, it's certainly a good reason, I think, to come in, sit down, talk with an attorney, find out what your rights are and find out what should or should not be happening. And, and like I said, and also be directed to the best doctors on the panel, because, usually there are good doctors there.
All right. And remember, there's absolutely no charge for a consultation,
Exactly.
right?
That's true.
You can come in and talk to an attorney absolutely free. 478-742-1351 is our number. Tonight, we're discussing workers' compensation and, of course, mediation. Got to have that too. That's necessary. I'm Morgan. I'll be back in just a moment. We're going to take a quick break, but we're going to take your calls next on Law Call.
Welcome back to 13 WMAZ Law Call, hosted by award-winning broadcaster Morgan Dukes, and guidance from the personal injury law firm of Reynolds, Horn, and Servant, including the knowledge and experience of personal injury attorney Carl Reynolds, selected by the authors of Best Lawyers in America, with more than $385 million awarded to his clients. Plus, attorney Wendell Horn, designated as a super lawyer with millions of dollars in verdicts and settlements for victims of 18-wheeler accidents. And attorney B.J. Servant, a top-rated lawyer for ethics by other lawyers and known for work against defective and recalled products. 13 WMAZ Law Call.
And welcome back to Law Call. I'm Morgan Dukes, and our panel of attorneys tonight include Mr. Joe Boyd and Ms. Jane Seebeck. Now, let's take a look at an email question that we received. It simply says, is it possible to sue your employer after getting hurt on the job, or does everything have to go through the workers' comp system? I blame my employer for my injury 100%, and this comes from Jerry. So, what's the answer to that question?
No and yes.
No and yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, no. It's the exclusive remedy in Georgia if you're injured on the job. Even if the employer is 100% at fault for the accident, even if a coworker causes the injury, or even if you just make a mistake and get hurt. In Georgia, the exclusive remedy for an injury that occurs at work is workers' comp. So, and even if the employer is 100% at fault. I will say that's, I find that claimants tend to be a little more upset, the injured worker a little more upset about the remedy, about what they're entitled to through workers' comp, if the accident is not their fault. I mean, if it's a mistake they made and they come in, they're entitled to 2/3 of their average weekly wage, and they're entitled to go to the doctor and get fixed. Sometimes they're okay with that. But when it's somebody else, when it's somebody else's fault, when they were just doing their job and they got hurt and somebody else caused that, and they're limited to what they can receive, and sometimes in workers' comp it can be very limiting based off what you're making, and under those situations they can be kind of mad, and I think that's where that email represents. So.
Exactly. He says, I blame them 100%. Ooh, okay. Well, let's get back on the phones and say hello to LaToya in Macon. Hey, LaToya, what is your question for Law Call?
Yes, I was calling in regard to I'm a victim of a robbery at my job, and I was asking the question, what is it like? Why don't I deserve compensation? Compensation for being mentally disturbed after the incident. Like, what is the difference between mentally disturbed and physically? Because everybody I contacted, they was like, if you're not physically hurt, it's no compensation for it, but mentally is way worse than, physically to me. So why don't I deserve compensation for that?
Well, Toya, I would agree with you that sometimes the mental aspects of injuries can be much worse than the physical. And I think, the rule that people are telling you about is that typically in Georgia, for you to be able to recover for mental pain and suffering or mental anguish or you have to have a physical injury. So, in the robbery, there had to be a physical injury, and if from that physical injury, emotional trauma was, came about, then you would be entitled to treatment for that under workers' comp. But it's certainly a limited system if there was no physical injury, and I think that's what the others have been telling you about.
Okay, well, all the best to you, LaToya. Let's say hello to Dolores from Macon. Hello, Dolores. Welcome to Law Call. And I guess Dolores decided that she'll call back, right? In just a little bit. Hello, Dolores. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, all right. Welcome to Law Call. What is your question for us?
Yes, I have a daughter who was injured at work through no fault of her own, and she went to the doctors that they requested as far as on the list of doctors, and we were told to go to the emergency room from there because of the severity of her injury. And the workman's comp people, the insurance for that company, denied her claim, and they haven't sent her any money for her lost time off of work. And yes, I'm here.
And she's what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last one.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I'm trying to figure out how long do we wait to continue, because now she's having long-term effect from her injury, and they're still not trying to settle with us.
Right. Well, first I would say you need to sit down and talk with an attorney. I mean, because waiting is not a good thing, and I don't know that if you're discussing settling with them at this point, there may be reasons to resolve this claim, even at a point in time when treatment's still needed. But I will say that's generally the exception to the rule than the rule, because the question is, if she needs treatment, she was injured on the job and it should be being paid for through workers' comp, then she needs to get that treatment and get better. But sitting down with an attorney, going through the facts, figuring out why, listen, there are defenses to claims in Georgia. There are reasons why an employer may not have to pay, and I say employer, insurer may not have to pay for a claim, but those are things that you need to sit down with an attorney and discuss, because I'll tell you, my experience is that insurance companies tend to think all claims don't need to be paid. So I think sitting down with somebody who might have a difference, of opinion, they may well be right, but I think it's something you need to sit down with an attorney on and have a conversation with.
Very good. All right, 478-742-1351 is our number. If you have questions about workers' comp or mediation, give us a call. We'll be right back with more of Law Call. If you have questions for our guest, Jane Civic, you can reach her in Atlanta at 770-851-0557 or check her out on her website at www.janecivicmediations.com. And if you have any questions for Joel Boyd, you can reach him here in Macon at 478-405-0300 or on the web at www.reynoldsinjurylaw.com. And don't forget to follow Reynolds, Horn, and Servant on Facebook. Well, now, Joe, you had some continuing comments about our last two callers.
I always love our Facebook. I'm like, you got Facebook?
Yeah, you got Facebook.
But Jane, on the last, I think Dolores, with her claim, talking about, the possibilities of basically settling before it sounds like anything's been done.
Right.
Why might that be a good thing to do?
My guess is, in that case, and again it's a guess, is that the employer, for whatever reason, thinks they have a defense that perhaps this didn't happen at work, or there were some other circumstances where they wouldn't be responsible for paying for the treatment. And in those cases, it's sometimes good to settle, because you can nip it right in the bud, and then she can go get the treatment she needs, and the employer can move on at the same time. Usually, it's better to wait, but that's when everybody agrees that it's a workers' comp case.
Right. It stood out to me that she said that she had to go to the ER.
Right.
And it's unusual for there to be an emergency trip where there's not some understanding that somebody got hurt.
That's right.
And so that would be one reason I'd certainly say sit down and talk with an attorney. But,
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'm always a little worried about settlements before before the injury's been accepted and you've been and really sounds like you've been evaluated by anybody other than emergency services.
Right.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, let us say hello to Jane in Milledgeville. Hello, Jane. Welcome to Law Call.
Hello.
Hey
How are
there.
you?
Good, good. What is your question for Law Call?
Yes, I was wanting to find out. I had been on workers' comp for about 6 or 7 years, and they sent me for a follow-up appointment with a doctor in Atlanta, and he was evaluating me on things that were not covered under my workers' comp claim. Is that appropriate?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you just said, the last part of what you just said. You said, is that appropriate? Well, listen, oftentimes they may evaluate you for things that are not covered under the comp claim because they're going to blame those things for some of the ongoing issues or problems that you're having. They're not going to treat you for conditions. It sounds like you had an IME or an independent medical evaluation, and this is when the employer insurer wants to find out more information about usually about other options or other possibilities of what's causing the issues or problems. I certainly would, and these doctors, evaluate depending on what their specialty is. It's something where I'd certainly suggest sitting down with an attorney, going through it, looking through your medical history, and I'm assuming you have a treating doctor, and that doctor's opinion is going to matter as well. So, but it's certainly something I think they can do. Now, whether or not it would matter in them trying to turn off your benefits, which sounds a little strange at this point in time since it's been going on so long, but I certainly would say sit down and talk with an attorney.
Okay. Well, it's almost time for us to wrap it up, but we do have time to say hello to Paul in Hazelhurst. Hello, Paul. We don't have, okay. Well, Paul has said goodnight already, and it's almost time for us to say goodnight, but I certainly want to just let Jane know how much we enjoyed having her here tonight.
It has been a pleasure. Pleasure to talk with both of you and to talk to all of your viewers.
And I have to say, to say that, Jane actually helped our office resolve what I still believe is the largest workers' compensation settlement in Georgia history.
Really?
It was $4.5 million, and I mean, she just did a wonderful job, and so, it was something I think that just,
wow, you made history.
I think it worked for everyone.
Yeah,
well,
it did.
Everyone was happy at the end.
Well, congratulations. Congratulations. All right, let us take an opportunity now to say goodnight to everybody, okay?
Oh.
All right. Good night, everybody, and thank you for watching Law Call.